One of my favorite anecdotes from the world of conducting has to do with a rehearsal that Arturo Toscanini was conducting. And at one point, he looked up at the brass with that enraged pink face that players knew only too well. And he screamed at the brass, "Forte!" And they gave it more. "Forte!" They gave it still more. "Forte!" And finally, the lead trumpet player put up his hand. He said, "Maestro, we're giving it all that we have." And Toscanini said, "I know! I want forte, not fortissimo!" Now, the reason I'm leading off with this story has to do with the fact that the Philharmonic and I are in the midst of rehearsals for Brahms' Second Symphony. And there's always a danger when you approach or reapproach a work as beloved as this, as often played as this. And it's not that you take it for granted, that would be sacrilege. And at the same time, there are things that people tend to do over and over, habits into which they start to fall. And one of them, as we've discovered, as we've been peeling back the many layers of this incredible piece, has to do with the fact that Brahms was so careful to mark all of the times that he wanted forte, loud, and fortissimo, very loud. And we were all reminded of how many performances we'd heard where there was very little palpable difference between those two very different markings. Somebody once observed of the pianist Vladimir Horowitz that what was frightening about him was not how loud he played, but that you knew that if he wanted to, he could always play louder. And so one of the things that we've been reminding ourselves at our rehearsals of is, yes, when it's forte, play loud, and at the same time, always have that extra degree of fortissimo in your pocket so that when Brahms really wants it to roar, that we can do that and make it seem that the forte was as nothing compared to the fortissimo. We've talked here many times about the minutest of materials from which composers can build entire movements and, in fact, upon which they can base entire symphonies if need be. In the case of the Ruth Gibbs, we talked about her copious use in the Fourth Symphony of the major second, either played unison or as the basis for melodies. You know. Well, in the Second Symphony of Brahms, he uses one little three-note motive all through this symphony, and the ways in which he uses it, reuses it, disguises it, tucks it in where you least expect it to emerge are nothing short of miraculous. And these three notes are a very simple, nothing earth-shattering. We've heard those three notes used in disparate pieces ranging from Bach's Third Brandenburg Concerto and off he goes. They're also the first three notes that begin Beautiful Dreamer. Which was used to great effect by Peter Schickele in his Unbegun Symphony. If you don't know it, go right out and listen to it. So Brahms begins this symphony with those three notes in the cellos and basses. And once the bassoons and horns come in with that theme, you think, oh, that little bit of cello bass introduction was just a bit of ephemera to usher us into the theme. It turns out that those three notes are going to be haunting us throughout this entire symphony. Sometimes he uses them in accompanying ways. There's that beautiful second theme that a lot of people have likened to Brahms's Lullaby. And when it comes back a little later in the major, it's adorned by a flute solo. See? those same three notes alternating. There are moments where he uses it as a bridge passage. Again, all derived from this. The third movement begins with that lovely oboe solo. So he's taken that theme and turned it upside down. And the fourth movement, the two main themes of the fourth movement, similarly are based on those three notes. The movement begins. And again, turning it upside down, that's where we get the second theme from. Well, what about the second movement? A lot of people search through the second movement trying to find where those notes fit in melodically. There's that gorgeous opening theme in the cellos. Well, it's not in there, is it? There's a second theme, a very lovely kind of loping 12/8. Not in there. Well, it is in there in a very cleverly disguised fashion. In what I almost think of as an homage to Brahms's beloved Beethoven, there's that lovely theme that opens the slow movement of Beethoven's Ninth. And later on in the movement, Beethoven brings it back in one of those beautifully embroidered ways that he does. So this is what he's done to that very simple theme. It comes out like this. And so on. All beautiful embroidery on. Well, similarly, do you remember the third bar of the beautiful cello theme in the second movement of the Brahms? Well, later on in the movement, he uses that little fragment as the basis for a stormy outburst, while the second violins are playing that theme very plainly, although in the minor. The first violins above them are embroidering it. Well, do you hear what he's putting in there? So in the midst of this, our little friend, the three-note motif, is poking its head out. The work of a master of form, of incredible romantic utterance, a work that more than deserves its repertoire status and that we're so proud of the Philharmonic to be playing. As we do every year, the Philharmonic is going to be pleased to welcome to our stage the winner of our annual Don Bushell Competition. This year's winner is a lovely, lovely soprano, Ms. Allison Pohl, who's going to grace us with 6 songs by Richard Strauss. For those of you who think of Strauss as the master of symphonic technicolor to the max, these will present a more intimate side of Strauss. Most of these are love songs. They call upon the most delicate orchestral colors, and I think that they're going to provide audiences with a reminder that there were at least 2 sides to Strauss, if not more. We're also going to be giving another in our series of United States premieres, this one of a wonderful symphonic poem by a young composer named Molly Kien. It's called Pyramid. The composer graciously permitted us to give the work its first performance here in the States. And it serves as an eloquent reminder that in a world of classical music where there are so many isms and ists, minimalism, serialism, neo-romanticism, there are still composers who have found their own unique voice and are producing music of great quality.